He's a tall man.
What does it all mean?
This is where the archaeology has been found.
Oh, hi, how are you? Look at that.
I need a planter. A shrine to a belly button.
This is a rock salt?
Look at that.
No one gets into this place. No one.
Whoa, don't take me too far.
Now that's naked archaeology. What do a split skull, the Roman Empire, a murder mystery, and the survival of Western religion have in common?
You know, that's a question people have been asking themselves for years now.
The answer? This house, in an ordinary Jerusalem neighborhood. Because under it is a tomb with a 2,000-year-old murder victim.
הסיטוט המדהים הזה.
The owner of the house thinks the tomb belongs to the last king of Israel. I'm on a quest to discover who's buried in this tomb and to find out about the family dynasty that ruled Israel and saved Western religion from extinction. In 167 BCE, ancient Israel was occupied by the Syrian Greek Empire. A series of rulers were gradually choking off Judaism and replacing it with Greek pagan worship. Monotheism, the worship of one god, was threatened with extinction. But in the city of Modi'in, not far from Jerusalem, a Jewish priest named Mattatyahu was asked to perform a sacrifice to the Greek gods. He refused. I asked archaeologist Alex Weinrib what the historical sources say happened next.
One of the king's men came to Modi'in and said, listen, Mr. Mattatyahu, I'll make you a rich, famous man. Just, give your offering to our emperor. And he disagreed. One of the guys in his city started to go ahead to the altar, and Mattatyahu decided it's now or never, and he killed the guy, and he killed all the messengers from the king, and they ran off to the hills, and they decided, we're going to revolt. We have no choice.
A people's revolt.
A people's revolt. He and his 5 sons went to the hills and led this revolt.
The 5 brothers are known as the Maccabees. And with a small band of followers, they fought against the might of the Syrian Greek Empire, and they won. They liberated ancient Judea, they liberated Jerusalem, and they reconsecrated the Temple of Jerusalem to the God of Israel. Every year, the Maccabees are celebrated at Chanukah, because without them, the Greeks would have extinguished Judaism. That would mean Islam and Christianity would have never happened. Mattatyahu's oldest son, Judah, led a band of 600 against the massive Syrian Greek army. He regularly ambushed and defeated forces of 2,000 or more and would then vanish back into the wilderness. Judah, son of Mattatyahu, is sometimes credited with inventing guerrilla warfare, and he was so fierce that he was given the nickname the Hammer, or in ancient Aramaic, Maccabee.
That's a good name.
Judah and his forces defeated the Greeks, expelled them from the Holy Temple, and laid the foundation for a 100-year dynasty, the Hasmonean dynasty, which would protect Judaism from extinction. But even they couldn't resist the might of Rome. 100 years after Judah Maccabee and his revolt, the Romans occupied Jerusalem and eventually hunted down all the remaining Hasmonean royalty. The last king of Israel, Mattatyahu, son of Judah, was exiled to Babylonia, modern-day Iraq, where according to some sources, he was executed by a blow to the back of the head, which split his skull in 2. 2,000 years after the death of the last Hasmonean king, Rafael de la Rosa found a tomb in his basement, a tomb that he believes is connected to the Hasmonean dynasty.
הארכיאולוגים נכנסים, תוך כדי מהלך הבדיקות הם מגלים ארון קבורה יפהפה, זה מתחת לבית שלי, 2 חדרים.
Under your house, that's what you have.
עם פיתוחים וגילופים של כותרות פרחים.
This is an amazing looking moment. This is no ordinary person. This is a very fancy work.
Right.
I wanted to see where the ossuary was found.
Unbelievable.
Because Raphael tells me that what was inside the bone box surprised even the archaeologists.
This is where the beautiful ossuary was found, right here.
מסירים את המכסה ומגלים שמה עצמות אדם צעיר ערוף ראש. הרוף שלו לא נרש בצורה כזאת, כנראה שהוא קיבל מכת חרב ממרכז הגולגולת עד ללסת שהגולגולת נפתחה בצורה כזאת.
Could the murder victim in this tomb be the last Hasmonean king? But Mattatyahu, son of Judah, was killed by the Romans in Babylonia. How did he get to Jerusalem? If I'm going to connect this tomb to the last Maccabee, who died a wretched death, I want to see the tomb of the first Maccabee, who lived a glorious life. Every year at Chanukah, thousands of pilgrims travel to the modern city of Modi'in to pay their respects at the tomb of Judah Maccabee. Alex Weinrib showed me the tomb.
This is the place that till today, all the Israelis and the tourists come. There's a sign outside the street saying, this is the graves of the Maccabees. There are about 20 graves here.
Look right there. What period are we talking about?
It's a late Roman Byzantine type of burial system, about 5th, 6th century.
So this is like almost 800 years after the Maccabees.
Correct.
But if this is Byzantine, it's not even Jewish.
Right.
So you're telling me all these people are coming in Israel, lighting torches, crying their little eyes out, and they're crying over some monk that lived in the 7th century.
The tourists and the Israelis continue coming here every Hanukkah until we find the real place. It's good enough. It's the area called Modi'in.
Look at it. You want to see a Byzantine grave?
This isn't really the tomb of the Maccabees, so now I have two mysteries to solve. Where are Judah Maccabee and his brothers buried? And is the murder victim in this tomb really a Maccabean king?
He's a tall, tall man. He's a tall, tall man.
I'm on the trail of a 2,000-year-old murder mystery. Does the split skull in the tomb under Rafael de la Rosa's home belong to the last Maccabee king? I've also discovered that the tomb where everyone celebrates Chanukah isn't the tomb of the Maccabees after all. So I'm looking for the real tomb of the first Maccabees. The Maccabees forced out Greek occupiers. But more importantly, they fought and defeated Jewish collaborators who were assimilated and were working hand in glove with the Greek Syrians to help crush monotheism. In a way, the Maccabean revolt was really a Jewish civil war. The historian Josephus writes that Judah Maccabee was finally killed in battle in 160 BCE. And when his brother Simon took over, he built a family tomb for the 5 brothers and their father. I asked Alex Weinrib if Josephus left us any clues concerning the tomb.
There it's written that Shimon built, after his brothers got killed and his father died, a monumental grave on the graves of the forefathers in the city of Modi'in that was high with 7 pyramids that you could see it from the ocean, that was known all through history until the Crusader period. You had Eusebius in the 4th century and Hieronymus in the 5th and the Madaba maps.
It was a monumental structure, pyramids, over the graves of the Maccabees. It was huge.
It's huge.
For hundreds and hundreds of years.
1,200 years at least, it was written down that it's been noticed. So where is it today? People want to know. People want to go back to their roots. I want to know too.
So Josephus tells us we're looking for a monumental tomb. He also says it had an ocean view. And Alex Weinrib mentioned a map, the Maccabee map, which might also have a clue. So I drove to Jordan. Here in Maccabee is a mosaic map made in the 6th century, the oldest map of the Holy Land in existence. Dr. Konstantinos Politis showed me evidence that the map makers knew exactly where the tomb of the Maccabees was.
There is no other map of this period which helps us, which guides us to locate Jerusalem and some of the buildings within Jerusalem and many other smaller towns, cities.
So this shows the graves of the Maccabees. See, Maccabeo.
Plural.
And you see these towers? exactly like Josephus says. And it says Modin here, right? Modin.
This ancient map shows the tomb of the Maccabees was monumental, and it's right next to ancient Modi'in. Ancient Modi'in wasn't just a tiny village. It was a city with a synagogue where the Maccabee revolt began. The problem is, no one knows where ancient Modi'in was. But Josephus and the Talmud say that Modi'in should be 16 miles northwest of Jerusalem. So now I know what I'm looking for. Lost, one monumental tomb with an ocean view. 16 miles northwest of Jerusalem, next to the city of Modi'in. Using this checklist, I found 3 candidates for the tomb of the Maccabees. All of them the right distance from Jerusalem. And to my surprise, the first one was actually a pyramid-shaped tomb, just as Josephus describes.
This is an Arab mosque for somebody called Sheikh Irbawi of the West. And the stones they took, look at the stones. This is an entrance of a door. This they took to build the Sheikh's place. It could be a Hasmonean entrance. These stones were taken from a previous building nearby.
This obviously isn't the tomb of the Maccabees. But if the Sheikh took these stones from an earlier tomb, maybe he also took the design that he saw here, the pyramid shape described in Josephus.
This is the whole complex.
The answer to this question may be right next door at the second candidate for the tomb of the Maccabees.
No, that's a cornerstone as well.
A pillar stood here, no question.
Yeah, and there are giant stones all over the place. You can see behind you. I mean, this is not a small little house for a person living. This is a big building or a big grave.
Monumental.
The distance is okay. You can see the ocean when the trees weren't there. I'm sure you can see it from here.
see the ocean.
Ocean view.
I think it's a very good candidate, an extremely good candidate, but there were always problems with this, that the distance was a little bit too far and there were no real artifacts to be found. I think it's a very good candidate.
There's one thing missing. Ancient Modi'in. And there's no sign of an ancient city anywhere near here. So this isn't the tomb of Judah Maccabee and his brothers. But is this the tomb of Mattatyahu, the last royal descendant of Judah? When archaeologists tried to find out who the bones belonged to, they discovered that the tomb may be cursed. I'm trying to find the tomb of Judah Maccabee, where everyone should be celebrating Hanukkah. I'm also trying to discover the identity of the murder victim buried under this Jerusalem home. Is the victim the last Hasmonean king, the last of the dynasty founded by Judah Maccabee? But before I continue, Rafael de la Rosa wants to warn me of something that he thinks might stop my investigation. But nothing stops the naked archaeologist. Well, almost nothing. It seems that when archaeologists took the bones to the university for analysis, strange things began to happen.
20 דקות לפני הבדיקה, הוא יורד לקפטריה של בית חולים הדסה כדי לשתות קפה. הוא יורד במדרגות, מחליק, נופל, נחבט, מקבל מכה בראש. במרכז הגולגולת, באותו מקום שהנפטר שהיה צריך לבדוק אותו, מת מאותה סיבה.
But that wasn't all. A second archaeologist was called in to take the place of the first.
ואז הם מוצאים פרופסור אחר שנמצא באוניברסיטת תל אביב, אומרים לו, תבוא ביום שישי בצהריים כשכל העובדים הולכים ותבצע בדיקה. הוא יוצא משערי האוניברסיטה וקורא אסון, הוא רץ לאוטובוס שלו שעומד לעזוב את התחנה, ואוטובוס שלישי בא ופוגע והורג אותו.
It's not that I'm worried about a curse. But before I go back into the tomb, there's one other thing I want to check out. So far, I've examined 2 candidates for the tomb of the Maccabees. The first belonged to an Arab sheikh. The second looked good, but ancient sources say it should be next to ancient Modi'in. And ancient Modi'in was nowhere to be found. But in 2001, the modern city of Modi'in was expanding, and bulldozers found an ancient structure. Alex Weinrib showed it to me.
Look at this. Look at this stone. I'm walking over monumental. You could see a monumental building. I mean, these are monumental. You saw it opened.
You go down into an arched entrance to the grave. I have a picture here for you.
But this is a big grave. This is big. And this is one single person's?
This is probably a family grave. I think they went on the top of the hill and built up there a giant monumental grave, but the actual bones were buried here in the family grave.
Would you see the ocean from that top of the hill?
You see the ocean from up there.
I was excited at the other candidate, but you can't argue with monumental structures like this.
This tomb seems to have it all. And if it is the tomb of the Maccabees, the ancient map at Madaba suggests that the long-lost ancient city of Modi'in should be right across the road. And when archaeologists looked, they found ruins which seem to date to Hasmonean times.
You have here streets, and you have here houses, you have here a bathhouse, you have here a synagogue, which is the oldest synagogue pre-temple destruction period. We even found the mikveh that we're going to go into in a minute.
Mikveh is
and they declare that this is ancient Modi'in.
A pool for purification.
A ritual bath, right?
Where's the synagogue?
I'll take you there right now. Let's go to the mikveh. Imagine Friday afternoon. On a Friday afternoon, Yehuda Maccabee and his brothers would go to the synagogue, and first they would purify themselves from their week's duty, and they would go down.
This is incredible.
Into the mikveh, into the ritual bath.
Wow, this is incredible. A ritual bath from Maccabean, Hasmonean times. You purify yourself, you come out, you pray in the synagogue, and you go to battle. And Judah the Maccabee and his brothers may very well have purified themselves in this ritual bath.
Is this where the Maccabean revolt started? Archaeologists now believe that it is. And if this is Modi'in, then this may well be the tomb of Judah Maccabee and his brothers.
No.
So if we now know where the Hasmonean dynasty started, is this the cursed tomb where it all ended?
Let's go. Come on, guys.
Gizetol Tomer. Gizetol Tomer.
Rafael de la Rosa found a tomb containing a skull split in two right under his house. A 2,000-year-old murder mystery. Is this the tomb of Mattathiau, son of Judah, the last king of Israel, who was murdered in Babylonia? By the time the Romans took over and Mattathiau was exiled, the Hasmonean dynasty had become as Greek as the occupiers they overthrew more than 100 years earlier. But they did accomplish one critical task. They rescued monotheism. And so, at Rafael de la Rosa's home, archaeologists kept looking.
וכאן, בצד ימין, בגובה של 0.5 מטר מעל פני הקרקע, הם רואים משהו דמוי משקוף. הם מבינים שיש כאן כניסה לעוד חדר נוסף.
Through the secret passage, archaeologists found a second room. And in that room, an ancient inscription. The inscription is written by a priest named Abba, who traveled from Jerusalem to Babylonia. The mission, he says, is to bring back the bones of Mattathiau, son of Judah, and bury him here in Jerusalem.
Man. And this is where the inscription was.
The archaeologists were mystified.
False niches.
Where was the priest Abba?
Leading out.
There was a niche for his bone box, but no bone box.
Okay, 2,000 years.
If the priest wasn't buried here, was the inscription true? Maybe the bones in the other room belong to Abba, and the king isn't here at all. The archaeologists searched for 6 months and found nothing. They closed the investigation and went home. For the next decade, Rafael de la Rosa wondered what they had missed.
It's hard to tell whether it's solid or not.
But 12 years after the archaeologists left, haunted by the mystery, Rafael returned to the tomb.
This is amazing.
If he could find what archaeologists had not, he might be able to prove that under his house lies the last Maccabean king of Israel.
אני מנסה לשחזר מה הארכיאולוגים עשו 12 שנה לפני כן. אני נכנס למערה עם מקדח ביתי פשוט. אני מניח את המקדחה על קרקעית המערה. אני מנסה לקדוח כלפי מטה, לפתע נופל מכסה שגודלו 70 על 30 על 40 סנטימטר. אני משחיל את הגוף שלי לבפנים, ותראה מה שאני רואה. אני רואה ארון קבורה עם מכסה עגול, עם פיתוחים וגילופים.
This is really amazing. There's a false bottom here. Everybody's looking up there.
Yeah.
Right? They're looking at the inscription. I'm buried here. There's a niche right over there. You'd expect it to be there. The archaeologists are fooled. Mm-hmm. You come in here.
Come in here.
You find it.
Nobody take it. I find it. Why? I don't know.
For 2,000 years, the remains of the last Hasmonean king of Israel were lost. But Rafael de la Rosa's astonishing discovery, more than a decade after the archaeologists gave up, seems to confirm the identity of the bones in this tomb. After Rafael pleaded for more than 10 years, archaeologists returned the bones of Matityahu, and Rafael reburied them here, where a faithful priest had carefully laid them to rest 2,000 years ago. The curse was lifted and life went back to normal in this not-so-ordinary Jerusalem neighborhood. As for the Maccabees, the founders of the dynasty, well, without them, Judaism might have disappeared. And with it, Christianity and Islam. So this year, I decided to take my family to the real ancient Modi'in and celebrate Chanukah.
Hey, it's working.
And remember the band of brothers who saved Western civilization.
He's a total man.